Give us a little bit of the history here. This is not the first attempt at this. It seems like it's been going on for some time. How much money is involved?
Well, a lot of money is involved, and yes, you're right. It's been going on since the 1970s when John Lindsay was mayor and I started working for the city. It continued in 1980 under Ed Koch. Again, it flopped. The first one was an act of Congress that stopped it. The second was a lawsuit that Mayor Bloomberg attempted, and there was government inaction. And now we came within 3 weeks of it happening. We all thought it was happening and that the governor was solidly behind it. The amount of money is tremendous. It's $15 billion directly to the MTA, and that will spur at least another $5 billion in terms of federal funds. That's a $20 billion infusion to the transit system. It also would have resulted in more than $15 billion in bonds that were going to be issued. So it's a real blow financially to the region. Tens of thousands of jobs, local jobs, have been halted because this would have included the sandhogs who build the subways, the Second Avenue subway, the electricians who would modernize the subway stations, the carpenters, the laborers. Tens of thousands of jobs that would have been unleashed are on hold right now.
And I mean, it's really good history, good context. And to your point, we got very, very close this time. And I'm curious what you make of the reason why Governor Hochul, of course, reversed at the last minute. The explanation that she gave was that this is essentially a tax. Inflation is very high, and it's hard to put a tax on commuters and workers right now. And I would also imagine, Sam, it's very hard politically to put through any sort of tax right now.
Yeah, it's hard politically, but as recently as a month ago, she was solidly behind it. I stood with her at a news conference in December in which she couldn't be more solidly behind her, and the statistics aren't that much different. One statistic that is different, congestion in May 2024 was the worst in history. And more than 50 years ago, I was in charge of research at the old traffic department. The speeds in Midtown Manhattan in May of 2024 were 4.5 miles an hour. Traffic volumes are higher than they were in 2019. So I've always heard for 50 years, this is not the right time to do congestion pricing. London has had it for 21 years now, and they're doing great. Milan, Stockholm, Singapore, so many other places. This is a rare moment in which you have almost a silver bullet, one that deals with congestion, which stifles business, and deals with transit at the same time. So above ground and underground conditions would have improved.
Well, just focus on that specifically, Sam. If, in fact, they had the $15 billion or 20, including the federal funds, how would we have seen it? Would it have been actually improved mass transit? Would we have seen a difference? Or is it simply maintenance that has been long deferred?
Yeah, and that's a great question because so many people are worried that the MTA is this black hole. But one of the things that the advocates and the former governor and this governor supported was bonding the money. In other words, the money could not be touched for anything else. It can't go to wages. It has to go to capital construction. And that means the Second Avenue subway was eligible and was right at the top of the list, making subway stations more accessible, modernizing the signal system. All those are capital improvements. And that's the only way the money could be spent. Could not be spent on salaries, could not be spent on whatever the black hole people imagine is.
And what do you think the future looks like when it comes to congestion pricing? I mean, again, as we've been discussing, we got very close this time. This is something that has been tried to be put through in some form over the last 50 years. Do you think it's going to take another 50 years to see some form of congestion pricing actually take effect?
I warned my daughter yesterday and my granddaughters that they may have to pick up the mantle after 50 years of this. I certainly hope not. And one of the saddest things is last Tuesday, the day before the governor's announcement, I spoke in front of the American Public Transit Association, and city after city wanted to hear how we got pricing passed, how New York was about to do it so that San Francisco Vancouver, even Los Angeles, Chicago, Boston were all looking at pricing as a strategy of dealing with traffic. This wasn't invented by a traffic engineer. This was conceived by an economist, William Vickery, who went on to win the Nobel Prize in economics in 1996. He's no longer with us, and probably turning over in his grave right now after he heard the governor's announcement. But he pressed me saying, treat space in a city like a commodity. And what do you do with a commodity when demand is too great? You start to charge a higher and higher price for it. And you set the price, a right price, which we don't quite know the right price. We would have learned a lot by setting the $15 for the peak hours, $3.75 for the off-peak. And we would have learned a lot if we treated space as a commodity, which is the one thing we can't add to in a city.
So Sam, it might not be pricing that space as a commodity, but we did hear from Governor Hochul that she's looking for other ways to come up with the $15 billion, for example, by increasing taxes on business. Is that viable?
No, I don't think there's any appetite. A year ago, I'm a business person. I run a company called Pedestrian Traffic Management. Businesses, we took it last year. We took a tax hike last year. Not ready to take another tax hike this year. So the governor's got to come up with something else. This would have only affected less than 5% of her downstate constituency. It's not a big number in terms of the number of people taking the subways and the railroads. And this was a more targeted charge than a general tax would be.
Is it possible, Sam, this is not actually canceling it, but just putting it off till after the election?
Yeah. You know, except that the following year is a mayoral election, so you could be sure the mayor will not want it during his tenure. The year after that is a gubernatorial election. But yes, I've been around elected officials now for more than 50 years. Anytime you get close to an election, it's don't do anything to rock the boat.